party.
It's empty anyway.
Yeah, I know. I forgot it was empty.
Welcome, everybody. All right, we're gonna get this. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I would like some mic space too. Thank you.
No.
Oh, good plan. Yeah, I can just direct my voice this way. All right. Welcome to hopefully, technically, episode 2. First episode will probably not be aired in public,
Thank
and you know
God.
why? I used a lot of naughty words in episode 1, and I'm a good boy.
Fuck.
I'm trying to improve myself.
Oh, he's not.
I did, to be fair, I did refer to it as episode 0.
What?
Yeah, remember when I was talking?
No,
was
I don't. Otherwise,
Okay.
I wouldn't have said
You
much.
don't remember every single thing we talked about I guess 2 weeks ago?
No, because I barely did remember what I talked about yesterday.
Well, anyway,
What did we talk about yesterday?
I have no idea.
so hopefully this one will go up. And the audio isn't going to be total booty cheeks with any luck.
We can clap him.
And yeah, I think it's time to unveil the official name that I'm sticking with it.
I'm
Welcome to the Third Rail Pod.
Third rail, yeah, okay.
The Third Rail Pod.
Actually, I feel like that we had this discussion earlier about the third rail because we were having a discussion about like how you just want to grab onto those topics and electrocute yourself on
I
them
see the
until
third
it's a
rail
dead
and I
horse.
just go for it. I'm like a redneck kid who sees an electric fence and he's like, I'm gonna piss on that bad boy. But yeah, here we are.
yeah.
Third Rail Pod.
Yeah, pretty much.
Any other comments? Anyone? Any wisdom to share before I get on to the first order of events?
Don't be on the train tracks.
Hi. That would be me.
Oh,
Thank
nice. You got a shake?
Yeah, I got an alcoholic shake.
An alcoholic shake. Well, yeah, that's because you're an alcoholic.
We're gonna cut that.
He has to set a good example.
A good example for what? The children listening to us?
There is a 0% chance any children are going to be allowed to hear this pod.
Well,
I'm
then
gonna
let's-
warn you now.
Also, I'm
We're
like
talking Epstein. We're talking school shootings. We're talking Epstein.
slightly
imagine my
worried.
surprise.
Slightly worried that it might not pick you up because you've been talking with your hand in front of your face.
Oh, let me. All right. Allow.
No. No.
Good point. So anyway, this is a dark pod.
Continues to talk. With
This is the Empire Strikes Back to whatever last week was.
Last week was definitely not a new hope because I didn't have any hope at all. And it was 2 weeks ago, actually. Actually, no, I did have a little bit of hope because I got to go see Tarantino's new movie, so.
And that'll be our first main topic. But first,
Oh, that was a beautiful segue that I didn't know I made.
yeah. I wish we had just gone into it, but unfortunately, we do have to get to Twitter is not real life. So, let me just explain the genesis to the segment real quick to our thriving audience
Zero.
of multiple zeros, many zeros with commas, and hopefully someday numbers other than zeros as well.
Wouldn't that just be nice? Oh, God.
You know, so to our thriving audience, the Twitter is not real life. It can basically be summed up in a famous Tyler, the Creator tweet.
Wait, aren't we your thriving audience?
Yeah, but, you know, for the other thriving audience who maybe... So, the whole genesis of this pod, for those of you at home, was once upon a time I was eating at a restaurant, like this restaurant, but not literally this restaurant. That, actually move this over a little bit.
And he started yelling.
I did, much like I'm doing now. But the genesis was that I was explaining that Twitter is not real life, and how people were talking about midsummer How do you pronounce the movie?
Midsummer.
Midsummer.
Come on, man. Pay attention.
But it's spelled like Sommar.
Yes.
Now, you may be at home wondering, what the heck is Midsommar? And if you are, congratulations, Joanne and Cletus. You're like every other person in America. Because Twitter is not real life.
I don't think Devlin has a Twitter.
As Tyler, the creator, once said,
I mean, that might be the point. That's probably the point he's making.
that actually works against my point, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Tyler, the creator, once famously tweeted in 2012, this is pre-Flower Boy, Tyler, the creator. He said, cyberbullying isn't real. Just log off, N-word. And it's true. Cyberbullying isn't real. You can just turn the power off. Like you can literally just turn the power off.
I'm sorry, I said that very quiet.
That's probably the hottest take that I've ever heard from you. I feel like that take needs nuance because otherwise I'm going to be like...
Because you can turn... No, it actually doesn't need any nuance. You can turn your phone off.
I mean, yeah, but bullies won't.
The site.
And then everyone else who is in your sphere hears about it anyway.
Like, I'm sorry, but like you can literally turn your phone off.
Yes, but the bullies won't. That's fine.
Yeah, but that's fine. Like it's
so
not
everybody else in your sphere who relates to you in a physical space will hear the stuff regardless of whether or not you see it anyway.
Right, but that's not the objective of bullying. To make you feel bad.
Have you never heard of talking shit behind your back? Like,
that's not bullying. That's talking shit behind your back. That's like a different genre of bad behavior. The difference is like, if someone talks behind your back, whether they do that digitally or do that in real life, there is no impact. If someone bullies you in real life, you have to run away like a girl. Or, sorry, like someone who is meek of frame. Which stereotypically tends to be women, but it can be a man.
I mean, soy boys, am I right?
Exactly. Soy boys. So to speak. Sorry. So, anyway, I do want to clarify one more point, right? Like, when I'm talking like cyberbullying isn't real, like, I'm not talking like the psycho who like made a fake boyfriend account for some chick and then led her on for 2 years and then told her I'm not going to show up and kill yourself. Like, that's like, I mean, I understand it's technically cyberbullying. Like, that's not what we're talking about, okay? That's like some next level shit.
I mean, I don't know.
Mostly it's just like the shit that I do on Twitter where I'm just like, it's mostly the shit that I do on Twitter where I'm just like, you're ugly. There's also a block button.
Block buttons are nice.
Like, you actually don't have to engage with them. Like, if someone talks to you in real life, you have to try really hard not to engage with them.
I mean, but how
and this is especially true when you're a famous person, which gets me to Twitter is not real life, featuring Sarah Silverman. So Sarah Silverman was on one of my favorite podcasts, the Bill Simmons podcast. Shout out to Conspiracy Bill. And she was explaining like, oh, comedy's in a bad place.
Well, you're not
Can't
wrong.
say anything. It's like there's never been a time in human history that is better to be a stand-up comedian than right now. Okay?
I mean, Netflix.
Unless you're like Louis C.K. and you got caught being a pedo diddler.
Slightly misleading, but okay.
Unless you're Louis C.K. and you got caught being a non-consensual diddler.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'll allow it. Flag on the play rescinded.
Then guess what? You're gonna get like 4 Netflix specials.
I mean, yeah, Netflix is throwing money at anybody who stands in front of a mic these days, aren't
And
they?
guess what? Yeah, like Hulu and Amazon, they're going to get in on it eventually. You know, Comedy Central is a TV station that exists. It's only existed for like 15 years. There's an entire TV network on cable that does nothing but like 80% stand-up comedy. That's 80% of what they do. And on top of that, you can voice like animated animals in movies, which is the easiest shit ever. I'm gonna say it. Okay, I'm not shitting on voice work, but I'm saying if you're a dog who doesn't realize he's a dog, and you're trying to save a child who doesn't realize it's not a dog, that's an easy role.
Okay, fair enough. I have no
They're not
idea.
paying you to voice a character. They're paying you to be yourself as a dog. Like,
I mean, that's why a lot of stand-up guys get hired anyway. It's like, we don't want you to be a character. We want you to be
exactly.
Bo Burnham, but in animated form.
Exactly. There's never been, and you know, you can break big on YouTube or the vortex of not real life, which is Twitter, or Reddit, or mostly YouTube. But like,
I was like, I don't think I've ever heard of
if you have like one fire joke, if you have like 5 minutes where you're just going like 12 for 15 from behind the 3-point arc, you can become famous overnight.
We were on the verge of greatness. And then we got a sports.
You know what Chris Rock had to do? He had to play at these seedy, awful clubs for decades, with people just yelling the N-word at him and like throwing tomatoes on stage.
Do people still do that?
Well, back when in the 80s when Chris Rock was starting out.
They're probably throwing like 8 balls of crack on stage
Jesus.
because
Well,
they couldn't
it was
afford the tomatoes.
Good
Like,
old CIA.
New York Comedy Cellar.
Gotta fund those Contras somehow.
All right, I get that like getting heckled is not fun, but guess what? Like people know hecklers are clowns now at least.
I mean, it's also like
Back
part
in the
of
day, heckling was considered just a part of the experience.
Well, yeah, that, and I mean, like, heckling is just, it comes with the territory. Like, critics come with the territory of being a film director.
Yeah, critics come with the territory, and you know what? And then she's bitching, she's like, oh, you know, part of the I guess, like, artifactique. That's a great word, artifactique.
I don't even
Sure.
know what that means.
It's not a real word, but not important. Part of the artifice of being a comedian, right, is like supposed to be like you test out your material, and they're bitching about how like they'll have like a grainy cell phone recording where like they're testing out like how many times they can say the N-word and get away with it, and then like there'll be like a Twitter. You know, what'll happen is people got Twitter like, oh, this is shameful, and the comedian's point is like, well, you know, I'm trying new stuff. I'm trying to figure out like where am I crossing the line. Which I get to a certain degree. I do. I get it. Like, I get that, like, it's not fun having people shit on, like, unfinished material.
Well, I mean, at the same time, like, when it comes to certain things, isn't there a really nice, bold-faced line? Like, you know, more often than not anymore, when people ask a simple, don't make fun of minorities. It's not that hard.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's not that particularly hard, but
Just don't be an asshole, or be an asshole to people that you know can take it, or
But
be
here's
an
the
asshole for
other
something
point.
they chose to be,
like, you
as
have
opposed
to
to something
remember,
that they
like,
are.
only, what did we look this up? It was like 15% of people are on Twitter, right? And
Well,
of the 15%, probably half to a third of them are active, and of that, maybe 5,000 of them give a shit enough about your comedy to, like, if it goes viral, like maybe 5,000 people care enough to like retweet you.
As of
Any day now.
as of February 7th, 2019, active user Twitters per month is down to 9 million, and that's global, which is not even
9 million global, and some of them are bots.
Some of them are ISIS.
So if we say that like maybe 20% of them are American, it's probably less than 20% of the global base.
I don't know. Americans tend to make up a large section of like any major social media platform. It
Fine,
seems
whatever.
like.
Let's even say 50%.
I
It's
don't know.
probably not 50.
Maybe it's just encounter bias because Americans are awake when I'm awake, so I always see.
No, I would tend to agree that like Americans definitely like overrepresented it on internet platforms,
Yeah.
which is why I was aiming for 20. But like, whatever. My point is, even if it's 4.5 million active Twitter users that are not bots, okay? America is what, like 230 million population?
No, well, I mean, 230 million adults, maybe. We're over 300.
Yeah, so that's basically 1% of all Americans are active on Twitter. 1%.
I mean,
1%.
this is obviously a piss poor sample size because I'm the only person here who doesn't have a Twitter, and you're the only person here who actively uses it.
What's your relationship with Twitter, Celeste? Why don't you tell them?
They're on a break right now.
We were on break, Rachel!
Oh my god, not this again.
They were on a break.
Yikes.
So my point is, like, demographically, it's not a real life demographic. Like, cyberbullying isn't real, and turn it off. Just log. You don't have to. Like, if you're a famous comedian, you don't have to read your replies. You know who doesn't read their replies? Dave Chappelle. I don't even think he has Twitter.
Do you think he knows what Twitter is?
Oh, he knows what Twitter is. Like, he's pretty with it.
Okay, he's not that old. I wonder if Joe Biden knows what Twitter is.
Joe Biden may not know what Twitter is. Like, he definitely has done like the old guy thing where like they'll like mix two of them together.
Joe 3030. That's my Twitter.
He'll like take an old guy selfie where like he's squinting into the camera.
It's like, is this going?
And then he'll hand his phone over to an intern and it'll be like, post it on the Snap face.
On the snap face. That sounds like a GTA knockoff of social media.
Yeah, which is also like exactly how old people pronounce social media names.
I love it. That's how
All right.
satire works. It's what
But yeah,
old
that's
people
my point.
actually
Is
think.
like, you know, guess what? Stand-up comedy is hard. You know what else? Like, you work 20 hours a week, baby. Like, if you spend 15 hours a week working on your... Okay, if you spend 15 hours a week working on your material, writing it, practicing it,
and then 5 hours a week, 1 hour every night on a mic stand.
yeah, and like 4 hours traveling and all that. Like, I'm even reimbursing you for travel. Like, you know, you signed up. You knew it was a hard job. You signed up for it. Guess what? You make way more money than everyone else, and you work like 20 hours a week. You get to set your own hours. You never have to work if you don't want to. And if you're Sarah fucking Silverman, like, you never have to work again if you don't want to.
You got that good money. I actually don't know how big Sarah Silverman is.
She was in Book of Henry. She made
Wasn't
more
that-
money to be in Book of Henry than any of us will ever make in our lives.
Wasn't that god-awful movie that Rollins covered?
Yeah, a lot of people covered Book of Henry. So, Folding Ideas is the one that you're thinking of that covered them.
I'm
But,
sorry, they're both bald guys with beards. I can't tell them apart.
So Book of Henry is this terrible movie about a kid who decides he's going to assassinate his rapist best friend's dad, who's a rapist. And the kid is like 8. Then the kid dies of a brain tumor, so his mom digs up like his murder plot and decides she's going to do it. She's doing a murder plot of an 8-year-old. And that's the movie.
That's insane. I mean, okay. I'll be honest, on paper, it sounds like a dark comedy, but I have a feeling that's not how it played out.
It's not played for all. I haven't seen the movie. But that's the premise. That would have been a great leaping off point into our boy Jeff Ep.
But he wants to
J.E.P..
save that for last.
Yeah, I have the. I'm gonna tease you all right now. I have the hottest Jeffrey Epstein.
My expectations are
Boiling.
absurdly high.
It's boiling.
I'm literally an ice cube, and he's gonna have to melt that shit.
It's hotter. But first, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So all three of us have seen the movie.
Yeah, I even had to do reading up on history in order to understand what the hell was going on.
You're kind of teasing my point here, but why don't you? What do you guys think?
I mean, I thought it was a great movie on the surface, and then after, figuring out exactly what happened in real life, I liked it better. Like,
I thought it was pretty good.
like it made it happier, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, so Tarantino's typical, like his favorite genre, if you will, is basically revenge fantasy. I mean,
Revenge fantasy is not like it's almost
Okay.
a Tarantino exclusive genre.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. Like it's like when you think of Tarantino, you think of revenge fantasy, like Kill Bill, etc., whatever. Django Unchained. It's like a sunnier version of that.
It is. So here's my problem, and you kind of teased it. So, what did you guys know about the Polanski murders? Or not Polanski, Jesus.
The Manson
Speaking of
murders.
Epstein type dudes. But
You mean Roman Polanski with his private island?
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
no. But what did you guys know about the Manson murders going on?
Going in, I knew that Sharon Tate was killed by Charles Manson's people. However, that didn't enter into my mind as relevant context until, it didn't happen, or I wasn't sure if it was going to happen later or something, and so I had to, double check to, make sure that dates and everything lined up. And once I figured out that our two boys stopped it, I mean, that was fascinating.
So you didn't understand the ending of the movie then?
I didn't grasp it right away, no. All I got was, they went into the house to party after, torching somebody, shooting another dude, and stabbing another dude. Was nuts. I can't begin to explain to you how thoroughly amusing it is to see how ironic it is to me to see somebody get burned alive in a swimming pool.
Yeah. So then, because this is something that I thought, and I asked a few people, did you know that Margot Robbie was Sharon Tate right away?
Did I know she was Sharon Tate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. But not because of anything in the movie.
That's what I thought, which kind of...
if we were to approach the movie strictly from a non-meta-narrative standpoint, she doesn't get really revealed as anything other than a really nice girl up until, I don't know, she goes to see her own movie.
Yeah, I suppose, if you're... But even that, the very concept of her character is meta-narrative, which ties into my issue why I actually think it might be his worst movie.
This movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did not like. I wanted to like it at times. I really did. Especially the brilliant editing they did every time basically the car was traveling through LA. The way he edited that would give you a brilliant sense of the distance they were traveling.
Uh-huh.
And I thought the ending was spectacular, but I didn't think it was a good movie. So let's tie it into how Once Upon a Time is like The Lion King 2019. So both of those movies, if you took...
They do not exist well on their own merits.
It's not that... Well, yes, there's that. I mean, that is essentially what I'm saying.
They don't stand on their own, right?
It's not even just... It's the degree to which they don't stand on their own. Without the context of the Manson murders, there is no story. Like, if you took like some 15-year-old kid who like grew up in Mexico or somewhere, or like they wouldn't have necessarily grown up with like the myth of the Manson murders.
Yeah, like they have no earthly idea who Charles Manson even is.
Then what's the movie? Like,
It's a movie about two guys going through Hollywood, and then all of a sudden they shoot some people.
but the other problem
They
is,
kill 3 hippies.
so there is some underlying like sort of character and plot to it, which I think that was like even 2 weeks later, still don't know how I feel about like the weird random like half implying that Brad Pitt killed his wife.
Yeah,
That was-
never touched on at all.
That was weird.
Well, so they were saying that like that's why he couldn't get a job as a stunt guy anymore.
It's because
Because the guy hated him, and then he got into a fight with Bruce Lee on top of that. But like, they could have just had the fight with Bruce Lee and cut that out. I don't think that had anything to do with it. Like, what was the point of that? Like,
if I had to guess, it's because maybe it's because I'm biased, but I think that it's very noirish. Like, both of your protagonists are
why is there a noir element in your 1969 like glossy nostalgia movie?
historical revisionist nostalgia movie. I have no earthly idea, dude. All I know is that both central characters are impure. The only good person that the film frames as a good person for the entire film is Sharon Tate, because Cliff Booth killed his wife, possibly deliberately. Brett Dalton? No, that's an actor's name. What's his name? Cliff? No.
Rick Dalton.
Rick Dalton. Brett Dalton's a person in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Watch the show. Rick Dalton is an alcoholic has-been who, like, is basically a sorry sad sack, and, you know, that...
Yeah.
Like, the only person who's, like, an actively framed as a good person is Sharon Tate. And she just kind of exists
But
in
the
her
thing
own slice
is
of
like
life plot
Cliff
line.
Dalton or Cliff Booth. Jesus, I did it. The thing is, like, Cliff Booth is framed as a good person in every scene, except for the part where they imply that he killed his wife. Maybe.
Which is
Maybe. It could
really,
have just been a voting rights. We don't know.
it's really,
It's not like a How I Met Your Mother situation where we know that Ted killed the wife with antifreeze.
Ted killed the wife with antifreeze.
Slowly
Unfortunately, a
voicing
rant that is... I might tack that on at the beginning or the end.
Put on your tinfoil hat. It happened. It was an inside job.
But
which did
anyway,
9/11.
there's just this weird... But I think the bigger problem is, like... Let's pretend... We're going to do a thought exercise. Let's pretend that this is actually fictional. Like, none of these characters are real.
Well, then
Like, Sharon Tate's not a real person.
then it loses all context, and then it's just this weird. So it's like a weird intertwining Game of Thrones story, except there's no real. The climactic thing when they finally twine together is they have a party. That's the end.
It's just nothing happens.
Exactly. Like Sharon Tate's entire narrative is basically a slice of life story without any.
It's a slice of life story that doesn't connect to the themes of the movie, and it doesn't connect to, like, people that say, like, oh, they made Sharon Tate quiet because that's what she was in real life. You know, they were trying to. But my point is, like, she doesn't function as a character in the story.
She's there as she's there as the central tension device.
She's there. I don't
Like
even think
only
so. Like,
within the context of. Only within the context of
but again, the tension
history.
only works if
Yeah.
you know a lot about the Manson murders. Like, I don't even think you would know that Manson is in the movie unless you.
I actually had to go back and see who it was.
Yeah, like they just call him Charlie, like once. There's no way to even know. Like, it's completely impossible to comprehend the movie unless you know about the Manson murders, or you've read a lot of like the advertising and pre-press.
Yep.
And people just say like, "Oh, well, you're supposed to know this because it's like the highest-selling crime book of all time," but like, happened 50 fucking years ago.
And I mean, like, I think that a core conceit of a film should be that I shouldn't have to study up for watching a movie unless it's like a sequel, and even then I should have already studied by watching the first one anyway. Like, that's the only pretext that I should need to see a film.
Much like how the Lion King is constructed, to tie this back into the Lion King. The Lion King is constructed in such a way where it's not even like when you're making a movie, you know, there are rules to cinematography. You know, this shot's supposed to make you feel this way.
It's a language, yeah. You know,
It's like they're not even speaking the language. It's this cynical, soulless construction that is just made to make you remember the other better movie. It doesn't speak the language of cinema, which I'm not necessarily like accusing. To be clear, Once Upon a Time is a much better movie than Lion King 2019.
that's because it was backed by an actual filmmaker.
But it also, like, the Lion King 20, like, they're both constructed in a way where, like, the sole purpose is nostalgia. Like, there's nothing, other than, I think the most effective moment, and really the one when I started getting into the movie, was when they're doing the whole, like, basically when they're reenacting the real-life TV show with Rick Dalton in it. That was like a real TV show they basically reenacted. They put Rick Dalton in it.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
And all the stuff with the little girl where she's like, they're talking about the book that Rick's reading.
Oh yeah.
And they basically talk about being washed up. Like, that's a theme. That's a story about a human. And it feels real and it feels emotional.
Yeah, like the best series of scenes were the ones where he was on that on Lancer.
Yeah.
Where he played the bad guy. And it was compelling and I mean, even this has its own little meta-narrative, because, I mean, and this doesn't require any outside context except that you know Leonardo DiCaprio's an actor. So he's an actor playing an actor who's washed up, trying to play a role. And so he has to play two different characters very close. He has to play one character playing another character, which is a level of depth that I'm impressed by.
Which going to be the other point that I'm so disappointed in the movie, because to me this is his best performance ever, DiCaprio. It's his best. It's better than Django.
I mean, yeah, Calvin Candy was just easily hateable, and that's about it.
And I think and Calvin Candy is, I think, might be the best villain of that decade. When did Django come out? Was it 2000s or 2010s?
It was 2000. It was 10.
It was 10 because
Okay, because
I was old enough to pirate it.
Because obviously, Ledger is obviously the best of the 00s.
Of the aughts.
Of the aughts, if you will.
Pay attention.
But like, if you look at the 2010s are basically over. And if you look at the best villains of our era.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, okay, so it's 2012. So if you look at the best villains of our decade, it's like Kylo Ren, similar layered performance to DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time. And you have like DiCaprio. Who else would you even put on the villain list? Like Killmonger?
I mean,
I think that would have to be the other. Like, I can't even come up with that many good villains this decade. It's like this is like the non-villain era.
I mean, a lot of movies that I like from this era are, I don't know, it's situational stuff. Like Arrival was very.
Like Arrival didn't have a villain.
It was more about a challenge than it was an antagonist.
But that's like an Oscar movie. Like Oscar movies never really have villains.
Yeah.
Other than like Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
That's kind of an Oscar movie.
Well, I mean, Silence of the Lambs is also a classic.
But like Florida Project doesn't have like a villain.
Fair. I'm trying to think of like other movies that I've seen that isn't like Marvel stuff, because
It wouldn't be X-Men. Magneto's fine.
I mean, Magneto's
He's
the
not
best of
anywhere on the
Magneto
level.
was like back in
Keep in mind,
2000.
we're not talking Ian McKellen Magneto.
Oh,
2010s.
Michael Fassbender's.
Yeah.
I mean, he was fine.
He's solid.
He's also
He's not anywhere near the other three.
he's also way more hero-ified, I guess.
Don't fucking say Thanos. Thanos is bad. I am inevitable. Thanos is a booty villain.
That's your take. I'll leave you to it. I mean, I'm not a fan of most superhero villains anyway because
Yeah, then you get into like generic, like Steppenwolf from Justice League with the fucking boxes.
Steppenwolf just exists. He's not even like a character. He's like
Exactly.
A tornado.
This is the Steppenwolf era. If I had to say one villain defined this era, it would be Steppenwolf.
Wait, what about the Enchantress?
The Enchantress? Oh.
Yes.
Celeste knows what's happening. He's trying to.
Yes.
I'm not gonna fall for bait.
You're not gonna take the
I'm an
bait?
adult.
No,
I'm an adult. I'm an adult. I'm an adult.
his head's gonna explode like Slipknots.
The man who can climb anything.
No.
I'm the bait god.
Let me tell you something here, okay? I can't believe it. Okay, they blew the guy's head up. Do you understand? They give every single character a music intro. Except for one. You know who it was? Slipknot. You know what Slipknot was? You know what his superpower was? These are the, you know what, and also, let me just talk, I haven't even talked about this. Suicide Squad, let me tell you, the worst set of villains ever. None of them have any powers. None of them, let me repeat this again. None of them have any powers. None of them have, except for the one who turns evil. They have, like, Ray Lewis with a skin condition. A guy who's real good at shooting guns.
I've already won.
A guy who could be replaced with a $300 weapon and gasoline. The one who dies at the end.
Yeah, Diablo.
Flame. You could just buy a flamethrower. You can get it off Amazon to kill bees.
To kill bees.
If you're a
Why do you wanna
beekeeper,
kill bees?
Bees are
Why
dying
do you
at an
wanna
alarming
kill
rate.
bees? Don't kill bees.
fine. Let me.
Bees are good.
A particularly effective Mexican beekeeper is like their ace. He's like the best guy on the squad. I mentioned a real good, and then a slut with a baseball bat.
Wait, are we slut shaming in 2019?
A slut me. Yeah, we are. A slut with a baseball bat. Jesus. And then they introduce this real, and the whole concept of the gang is like, we're gonna stop Superman. Harley Quinn, yeah, 1v1 Superman, babe.
I'm so excited that I got him to rise to the bait.
What are you gonna do? Like, I don't know, like bend over and hope he like gets distracted for a few seconds, while like the human beekeeper maybe like makes him slightly uncomfortable and makes him bald.
Makes him a little
Does Superman's
bit
hair
toasty.
burn? I don't think it burns in the DC universe because
No, I don't think
in
so.
Man of Steel,
He's
in the
Kryptonian.
so in the Man of Steel oil rig scene, he's like on fire, but his beard and his hair are still perfect.
That's because he's Henry Cavill.
No, but my point is like in the DC universe, Superman's hair doesn't burn. Even his hair is fireproof.
Oh god.
Which we must conclude then. This is getting way off the rails. Which we must conclude then that when Superman's going down on Lois Lane
Oh my god.
and his beard hair is just doing what beard hair does when you're committing that kind of act, that has to give just the most uncomfortable rash. Because the hair doesn't catch on fire.
Does that mean that it's steel wool?
It just every time that Superman goes down on Lois Lane, it just guess I'm getting another period this week.
I don't need to think about this, man.
So they introduced the man. They got the human beekeeper, the guy with a gun, the slut with a baseball bat, got a linebacker with a skin condition, and a guy who can shoot guns real good. They got the man who can climb anything. Congratulations, you got a cat. You got a cat. We're gonna stop Superman. We got a cat. He didn't get a musical intro. Guess what happens? They blow his head off. They killed a cat. At least the cat gets 9 lives. Slipknot got 1 life.
Oh my god.
He had 2 lines of dialogue. You know how they introduce him? They have 2 guys guarding him. He punches one of them, and the other guy just tackles him. He is literally no more effective than another guy.
Oh man.
You know what would have been cool if they had come up with some contrived scenario where his climbing skill would have saved the day. But the hackers fucking screenwriters couldn't even do that. And you know what happens? The man who could climb anything he was there. That was it. He just died. They have these shot collars from or I guess the head popping collars from Ratchet Deadlocked, a game for PS2 that came out in 2005.
I remember the game.
Yeah, they stole the plot from the knockoff version of the Ratchet game, which to be fair was pretty decent.
Predates, even that.
They might as well have PS2 graphics with how fucking bad those Tar Monster CGIs were.
What, I mean the faceless nukes fighting a skybeam?
It was literally it was a blob. They were just fighting the alien goop from Venom, but with gonorrhea. That was half the movie. It was just them oh no, they're closing in. Watch this trick. Oh, I forgot. A guy with a boomerang.
So what if we rename the podcast Mason Talks About Suicide Squad?
Okay, I'm done.
Suicide Squadcast.
I'm done.
Suicide Cast.
I'm done.
Squad
I forgot
cast.
what I was talking about.
Suicide
Look what
pod.
you did. Look
We were
what you
talking
did.
about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Look what you did.
I regret nothing.
But my
I don't
point
know
is
how we segued this bad.
it's the Sharon Tate section of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though. It is constructed. It's constructed with more craft and skill than The Lion King, but it's constructed for the same reason. It's the member berry from South Park. Remember this? Remember when black people could not vote, basically?
I mean, it's also just a slice
Remember
of...
when 10% of women were in the workforce?
It's also a slice of life...
Yeah, but again,
hang on. It's a slice of life narrative with no conflict, which means it's just a person living and that's it. And it's not... There's no...
It's like if they
there's no
filmed
tension.
Boyhood, but they did 4 different days instead of 18 different years.
Do I have to watch
Boyhood
that
with
movie?
Sharon Tate. It's worth watching just because it's so fascinating.
I feel like that's another movie where the meta-narrative outshines the actual film.
I would agree, but it's a little different because, the narrative, you can still tell that it's the same guy because it's every year they film scenes. So it's not like say something like Moonlight where they just picked 3 actors that looked alike, and it's a span of time. It's not it's no technology on Earth can replicate.
Well, but I mean,
Boyhood is the most tactile movie ever made.
well, sure. I guess what I'm getting at is that Boyhood kind of has the same reputation as Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz was in Technicolor, and that just changed the movie landscape, and it was crazy.
I
Boyhood
feel
was
like everyone
just...
understood Boyhood's not going to be replicated.
Well, yeah, it's not, the only difference between that is Boyhood is a once-in-a-lifetime, maybe even forever achievement of filmmaking.
Yeah, the thing with Boyhood is the biggest problem is just the act, if they had found the next Christian Bale with the kid, it'd be one of the best movies ever. The kid's he's okay.
He's okay.
He's not a disaster.
He's not. Well, I mean, yeah, child actors aren't exactly.
Like, they could have done
Brilliant.
worse. They could have done better.
Fair enough.
And that really kind of is where it doesn't necessarily always work. But anyway, Sharon Tate is like Boyhood, but only over like 7 days instead of like 7 to 18 years.
I mean, yeah, okay.
So this is let me just recap what she does in the movie. Says hi to her husband. You see shots of them driving. Then you don't fucking see them for 20 minutes. Then they go to the Playboy Mansion. And the worst fucking scene in any Tarantino movie, by far. There was no point. That scene accomplished nothing. There's no reason for that to be in the movie. There's just Tarantino jerking himself. He's like, oh, snappy dialogue. Isn't it funny how she dates guys who look like 18-year-old boys? That's the whole point of that scene. It's like, oh, what a clever little observation. Like, Sharon Tate, like most human beings, has a type.
Yeah.
You really wasted 10 minutes of the movie to like recreate the Playboy, and it doesn't it doesn't teach you more about. First of all, half the movie, like half of that scene, doesn't even focus on her. You just see her like dancing a little bit. It's mostly these two fuckos. I don't even know who they are. I'm sure they're supposed to be someone famous.
I think it was. Didn't they say it was
No, they tell you who the guys are
Steve
that you.
McQueen, wasn't it?
Who?
It was Steve McQueen, wasn't it?
Maybe. I don't care. I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter if Steve McQueen or like Lightning McQueen from Cars.
I knew that was coming somehow.
Owen Wilson.
Wow. Like, there's no point. There's no point. It's just 10 minutes. I could have checked my phone, except I was in a crowded theater and I would have been a dick. I was in the back row, though. I could have got away with it. I could have checked Twitter to see what Not Real Life is up to. And that was it. Like, that's the... And then, so that happens. Then, more Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth stuff. Good deal. Then she buys a book and she watches herself on a movie screen.
Yeah, we get to see that she loves making people, clap and film and be a good person. It's like, okay.
Which, again, serves no narrative purpose.
I mean,
And then it cuts to the end. They go to a party, and then she meets Rick Dalton at the end. That's it. That's her whole. That's it. That's 40 minutes of the movie. That's like 25% of the movie's runtime. There's no point. There's no point. You know they could have made much more efficient storytelling. They could have just had a caption at the beginning of the movie. Sharon Tate was neat.
or better yet, Sharon Tate was needlessly murdered on X date 19 whatever.
You know how Morrison told the Superman origin story in All-Star Superman? 8 frames, 1 page. You open it and you see it. Krypton, boom, pod, baby, farm, Superman. That's it. Tarantino could have done that.
It's because Morrison is a genius.
That's all. That's all. That's all. And so the whole movie falls apart because, first of all, like, it needed to be shaved a little bit efficiency-wise anyway. Like all of Tarantino's movies since Sally Mankins died, it just drags.
Who's that?
Sally Mankins was his editor for, like, forever, and then she died.
And so now his movies go on from... Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and if you look at Django, Hateful Eight, and this movie, those are the 3 movies that have come out since she died.
And they all are an
all drag.
eternity long.
They're all long, and particularly Django in this movie, would be so much better if they were... Django in particular would be amazing if it was like 20 minutes shorter. Like, there's just... The last 30 minutes of Django is borderline unfucking watchable. Basically, after Kristoff shoots Leo, then it's just like blood fountain, mediocre action scene, guy gets whipped in the balls, he escapes, more shooting. Like, they're just like boring like bloody Michael Bay spectacles, basically. There's nothing like, and then it just gets repetitive at the end. It's like Oh, he shoots some guys. Oh, he escapes. Oh, a dumbass slave over. He shoots him. Like, he just goes through that, like, Django outsmarts the dumbass white kid. Like, or not kid, because they're all adults, but, like, Django outsmarts the dumbass slave owner, like, 10 times. Like, okay, it was really funny. It was like, it's really smart that you did that you're making these slave owners be the country bumpkin degenerates that they are, but, you know, you're also supposed to tell a plot.
What's the plot?
It's not a Lars von Trier film. There's a point.
Lars von Trier.
And so once upon a time, it just like there's like what does it do? Like there are parts of it that have like human that make you feel, but mostly it's just like remember this. This was cool.
Well, I mean, I think the problem is that it's.
What is the theme of Once Upon a Time?
Themes are for 8th grade papers.
Let me tell you why theme's so important. So, Chernobyl came out. Have you seen Chernobyl yet? Jesus.
No.
I'm gonna, you know what? Let me just say it this way. Two big HBO shows came out. Game of Thrones and Chernobyl. Game of Thrones for, you know, I don't like it when people shit on Damien and Weishaupt.
David Benioff and Weiss.
Benioff and Weiss, thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
I was thinking of Damon Lindelof, the Lost guy. My brain just broke.
I mean, as it would.
But
As you do.
You know, and it kind of actually pisses me off when people are like, oh, talentless D&D fucking ruined everything on, like, the not real life Twitter and, like, Reddit and shit. And they're like, talentless attacks and now they're going to ruin Star Wars. Like,
Oh, God.
guess what? Seasons 1 through 4 of Game of Thrones were incredible. It's not like they got brought on. And I understand they were adapting from books. I understand that. I do. I get the content. Like, they didn't write all the dialogue. I understand. But they were the showrunner.
He also wrote The Chaos is the Ladder line, which is easily one of Littlefinger's best lines. Just saying.
Yeah, and I don't know that much. I don't know enough about the show to, like, give you a breakdown, like, oh, they wrote this. But ultimately, like, you have tons of responsibilities as a showrunner. Like, no one in creative cinema has more control over a project than, like, an HBO showrunner. Because the producers will just stay out of your way.
Yeah.
If you work for HBO, that's kind of their calling card. Is they let creative people do what they want to do,
Which is nice.
and you know they're hiring the other writers, the like lower ranking writers. I mean, obviously you have like casting directors and stuff, but they're signing off on all the casting. They're hiring those casting directors. No, they're hiring the directors. They're hiring the cinematographer. Right? So like my point is like they're not talentless bum hacks, but ultimately, the problem is that they didn't understand that Game of Thrones was about power, about how power affects people, about how power changes people, about how power affects relationships. If there is a single thesis statement to Game of Thrones, it's the Varys line where he's talking about Varys and Tyrion are talking about riddles and shit. And Varys is explaining. So the riddle goes: it's like a king, a priest, and a merchant are each telling a guy with the sword who to kill the other two, who survives. And Varys is like, well, it doesn't matter because power is fake; it's a shadow on the wall. Like that's the thesis statement of the entire show, and ultimately, they don't understand that. And so, if you look at even if you look at season 5. If you look at season 4, which even toward the tail end, it started, walking away a little bit from that. Like season 5, that's the biggest difference, I think, ultimately.
Like, they went from showing that for all of Tywin Lannister's power, he still got killed on his toilet to Ramsay Bolton in a heartbeat.
Yeah, they had Ramsay Bolton, who doesn't, he's an asshole and he's a good villain, but he doesn't really interested in that power. And then you have the over the wall stuff, which I think probably mostly came from the books because that was very much still interested in that. And then you had the Doran plot
That didn't exist.
where the reason the Doran plot was so bad, other than the bad writing, was that the Doran plot was just about them, like, it was an action adventure in the sort of like political, and then you compare it to Chernobyl, right? Chernobyl is so tight now. Chernobyl's tight and focused, but ultimately, even though like all biopics are bad but three, what makes Chernobyl so effective is what absolutely focused it is, and it has a thesis statement too. It's what is the cost of lies, and they have this whole monologue toward the end of the movie of the Russian scientist who killed himself after basically exposing the Chernobyl cover-up by the Russian government. And he's going on, he's like, we as scientists try to find truth. What is truth? What is the cost? Now all I know is like, what is the cost of lies? Blah, blah, blah. And it's so laser focused that even within like the meta narrative of it, like they also released a companion podcast piece where Craig Mazin, the writer, like explains what they changed, why they changed it, what actually happened. Which is so perfect when the problem with the biopic as a genre is the shifting around to create these sort of false, empty narratives.
Yeah, because you have to figure out how to create a narrative out of somebody's life, and that's famously impossible. Or at
So
least
the
not
podcast
practical.
is like, it's like addressing the flaw of the entire genre while also, as its own companion piece, feeding into the theme of the show. With a level of transparency that I think like actually should be like a complete innovation. Like I honestly think it's like an innovation. Like it will change. I honestly think it'll probably change how we view the biopic genre.
And possibly how people create it.
So my point is, themes are not for fucking 8th grade book reports. And you can't tell me like Once Upon a Time has themes. It doesn't have a theme.
No, it doesn't.
It's
I mean,
murder is bad.
I mean, it's basically what it amounts to is Quentin Tarantino daydreaming about how different the world could have been if Sharon Tate had lived. And I mean, even that's meta-narrative.
It's pointless and it's not good. That Once Upon a Time.
I don't know. I don't mind the movie, but I'm probably not going to see it again.
All right, I think that about covers it. And anyone have more thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Anyone have more thoughts on Suicide Squad?
No, you got those covered.
Anyone have more thoughts on Soups going down on Lois Lane?
Please do not speak of that ever again. That's
All right,
my final
we're moving
thought.
on. So, unfortunately, two mass shootings this weekend in Texas and Dayton, Ohio. That was this weekend, right? Saturday?
I don't know. It all kind of blurs together.
Why don't you look it up real quick? I'm pretty sure it was like Friday, Saturday. Because I remember, like, I woke up and, like, one of them happened. I remember, you know how I remember? Because I went to bed, like, I think one of them happened, like, Friday and one happened Saturday. Because I remember what happened was, like, my dad was like, oh, you hear about the shooting? And I was like, oh, the one in Texas. He's like, no, there was a shooting in Ohio. I was like, oh, no, there was a shooting in Texas. And so we argued about it, and then we realized there were two fucking shootings.
August
I thought there was
6th.
3.
What's today?
The 12th.
Okay, so this was last week.
Nearly a week ago.
God, you're right. Everything. It kind of. Anyway, the point I wanted to make about it was
El
like.
Paso and Dayton, yeah.
The point I wanted to make about it was like it feels like, and this is where I'm relying on you non-Twitter folk, but it feels like something shifted, like incrementally in a way that I don't think it's shifted since Parkland. And I think it was.
I think I know what you mean, but the problem is I'm also on Reddit a lot, and Reddit gets a lot of Twitter reposting. So
So there are a couple things reasons why. One, I'll probably need to look up a bunch of shootings now. So have fun with the FBI. But I think this is the first like real publicized shooting to happen in an open carry state. And the reason why I think that matters, and I'm referring to Texas.
Well, yeah.
To be clear.
I think. Hang on.
I don't think
Keep
Ohio's
talking.
open carry, but
Keep talking.
and so the open carry thing, in combination with like this real public, like one of the higher body counts we've had by mass shootings, was it's sort of the veneer of it. Yeah, so so we had 2 open carry states with mass shootings, and it's sort of like the absurdity of people open carrying after a mass shooting. I think really like broke a lot of brains.
And I mean, like, there was also this thing where somebody was doing their big dick flex, and they dressed up in body armor, had like 100 rounds worth of ammunition, and walked into a Walmart with an AR-15 slung on their back, and he got arrested for it. And I actually don't remember where this was. But this kid was like, oh yeah, I can still open carry, gun laws, rah-rah, and like, I don't know. I think there's definitely more and more there's a dissonance in reaction to this. Like, people are tired of hearing about it. I think, like, they're not seeing palpable change or efforts to change be made.
And this is where like Twitter does matter, like Twitter and Facebook and shit. But like, it did seem like people talked about this one more. Like, it was in the news for like 5 days, which, oh wow, 5 days is short. But like, if you last like 5 news cycles, that's like an eternity nowadays. Because first of all, there was like, I think a lot of people like me were just confused that there were 2 of them.
I think that might have also been the breaking point. Is there's just something. I mean, with respect to I guess both the Parkland shooting and the Sandy Hook shooting, for different reasons. Like, both of them were exceptionally disappointing, heartbreaking, whatever you want to call it, for different reasons, like, you know, children dying, so on. But I think that having 2 shootings on one day brings about a fundamentally different level of reaction.
And then, which gets me to sort of the final point, which is that I feel like Thoughts and Prayers, like, that was the one where, like, just everyone, like, even the old normies caught on. They were like, nope, no thoughts and prayers. Like, I was watching.
Yeah, I didn't see much of that this time around.
Yeah,
I think my boy Sean Hannity said it, and that was it.
You're right. Like, Sean Hannity is trolling when he said, like, he's doing it on purpose.
I don't pay enough attention to Hannity, you know. So,
like, Sean Hannity, like, said that intentionally to, like, trigger people.
Okay, yeah, I do.
He's like, oh, this'll get him. You're gonna tell me thoughts and prayers aren't good enough, Sean. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him. You know, he starts jerking off to like the Epstein tapes. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him.
Okay. All right.
And I remember I realized this when my dad was watching a golf tournament, and therefore I was watching a golf tournament. And there had been like a CBS like news break. I think it was for the second one.
Yeah.
They did like the news, even though it happened like 4 hours ago. They did like some news update on it. And then there was like this long awkward silence, and then the announcer is like, yada yada yada, in like the golf voice, like yada yada yada, thoughts and prayers with the folks of Dayton, Ohio. It was just like bizarre. Which, like, I don't even mean to shit on the golf guy, because like,
that's probably
I get
like
it. You're not gonna like go on
to do.
Like, I get it. You're not gonna go on like a long tangent about gun control laws,
or like even about like mental health support and universal medical care.
Yeah. On Yeah, you're not going to go on some long political screed while calling a golf game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's about the only acceptable time that I can think about it is like if you suddenly get that information and you have to like continue to do whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the only time I really heard it. And instead what I heard, so there are two narratives. And of course, because I am fair and balanced.
Yes, you are fair and balanced.
I'm a fair and balanced guy. There were two reactions, one on the left and one on the right.
Imagine that.
That were, well, both of these reactions I think were new and weird and sort of
Okay.
weird. Well, the reaction, I'll just get the reaction right. I don't have a lot of thoughts about it. But the reaction I saw from the right was like a lot more, they definitely, like I said, they audibled from the thoughts and prayers. And they went straight to like, especially the Dayton one, they were like, oh, the Antifa is going to shoot us all. Because the Dayton guy like followed a bunch of like, you know, left-leaning media pundits on Twitter, retweeted some of them. And so like Andy Gno, who's like the biggest troll in all of media.
I thought that was Tucker Carlson, but okay.
No, because Tucker Carlson, here's the difference. Like, Tucker Carlson believes most of what he says.
He's genuine. Okay, yeah, he's genuine. Trolls aren't genuine. Fair enough. Okay.
And also, actually, Sean Hannity's kind of a troll. He's a much bigger troll than Tucker. Because, like Sean Hannity, like, knows how to get the people going. Whereas, like, Tucker...
just kind of says dumb shit.
He's... Like, he tries to be funny, but he gets too mad to tell the joke.
He's like a liberal comedian.
Yeah, like, he gets too mad. Like, he'll set up a joke that's like, what do you call two snowflakes that walk into a bar? Fucking destroying America, that's what! They're ruining this country! They're invading! That's like Tucker Carlson's entire show. It's just basically like set up for jokes where the punchline is just like him getting too mad to tell the punchline. That's his entire show. Where it's like Sean Hannity is just kind of like smarmy. He has sort of like the almost like Sean Hannity thinks that like he's a parody of the liberal elite and he's gonna throw it back in their face. That's like the energy of Sean Hannity's going for.
He thinks he's Jon Stewart for conservatives.
Not even like, because I don't think he thinks he's a comedian. Like, I don't think Sean Hannity thinks he's funny. He thinks he's Rachel Maddow for conservatives, is what he thinks.
Okay,
like,
yeah, fair enough.
Like, he taps into what, he's a conservative's idea of what a liberal pundit would be if they were a conservative.
Okay. I mean, that's a lot of onions to peel back, but I get it.
But Andy Ngo, like, I don't think he believes a single fucking thing that these goons believe in. First of all, he's Asian, which, like, right away, not white. That's a disqualifier.
Well, I mean, except, you know, they're the model minority, man.
Like I said, disqualifier. He's, like, fourth on the chopping block. It's like, you know, obviously they're going to get the transsexuals first. And then, you know, Trump has the hate boner for Hispanics, so he's going to go after them. And then it's like just all other minorities.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Like, they'll be the last one on the list, but he's going to get them.
But
And, like,
they're still on the list. But, I mean, the list
Andy
keeps
Ngo's just
getting
a
added.
troll. He's a troll. Like, he doesn't believe a single thing that comes out of his fucking mouth.
Okay.
And he's just like, he's like messaging all these journalists. He's just like, so, were you close friends with this guy with 100 followers who retweeted you? And then he posts a bunch of screenshots of them reacting. And then he's like, see? They're radicalizing the American youth. So there's that, which is like the most extreme version of this. But then, like, they brought back the video game thing.
That was the most... So I started
That was
thinking
the main
about
one.
this. So, for those of you who are not familiar with the Mason meta-narrative...
No, not like my Mason thing.
No. Like,
Okay, you're just explaining.
I just started thinking, like, they brought back the video games causing violence thing, and I just remembered that we did this whole thing about video games and their relationship to the alt-right, and I was like, we didn't even go that far. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, well, so one of my long-standing theories has been, like, actually a lot of the behavior we see in, like, the Pepe fuckboys is actually, like, video games kind of taught them to be, like, alt-right racists.
I don't necessarily I mean, I get that, but I think that they were just the petri dish that allowed them to grow.
But my point is, like, ultimately, like, these alt-right fuckboys have no influence.
Yeah.
They're just desperate for someone who's as racist as they are. And the people in power who are like 70, and they don't even understand television. They, like, adopted cable, like, 5 years ago. They were like, fine, this whole cable thing's starting to blow up.
This whole cable thing. Just as millennials are like, this whole cable thing's kind of a racket.
I heard that Fox News is pretty cool. I'm gonna get that.
I can't remember when my dad started watching Fox News, but I think it was basically for my entire high school career. Like, it started after we moved to Beatrice. It was like a switch flipped. It was weird. Because we went to from watching CBS and your primetime crap to Fox News being on from morning till, morning.
All 6 hours that he was awake.
Hey,
Got him.
I'm not here to roast people.
But that's my job. I'm here to roast Slipknot.
Slipknot roasted himself.
No, technically Captain Flag did. A great another person on the squad who doesn't have a power. You know what his power is? He's G.I. Joe. But bad.
What about?
Why did you do that?
Okay.
Why'd you bring us back?
Okay.
Why'd you bring us back?
Tangent. Time out. Because otherwise I'm going to bring up Katana, and then that's just going to go downhill from there.
Hold me back, bro.
Hold me back. Alright. So, I mean, bringing video games, so I recently got back into Grand Theft Auto 5, and I'm just sitting here, doing Grand Theft Auto things, and I'm like, this is getting blamed for causing school shooters.
I kind of get the Grand Theft Auto thing. A little bit. Grand Theft Auto is, in the absolute top 1 percentile of, fucked up shit you can do in a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about it. Every single, I would say 95... It's a little different now that Grand Theft Auto is a little bit more structured of a game.
Okay.
But, Grand Theft Auto, 3 and 4, basically, the Grand Theft Autos before 4, San Andreas, 3,
Vice City.
Vice City, Liberty City. I think Liberty City is 3. I don't know why I just named it twice. But, all the pre-Grand Theft Auto 4 games were sort of very unstructured ROMs where you basically had, mini missions and then you just kind of did whatever.
Yeah.
And so the game was basically structured in a way where ultimately the most fun thing to do and the thing it really pushed you towards is to basically reenact a shooting. Reenact the mass shooting. That's a very, it's a very...
screwed up, for sure. I mean, it's like if No Russian was an entire video game.
Yeah. The Grand Theft... It's a little different now because now Grand Theft Autos are, narrative structured games and, you can go through... I think 5 is where it really flipped, where, I feel like kids who just started on Grand Theft Auto 5 don't necessarily... The first thing they do is, see how many people they can wipe out at a police station.
I mean, no, I think it's really funny because now it seems like the core conceit of Grand Theft Auto 5, at least, is make as much money as possible however you can. And just shooting a bunch of people isn't useful.
Well, I don't think that was necessarily it though, because that all started that really came with the online. You got to remember, Grand Theft Auto 5 did not release with online mode.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It came out
online.
A year later.
I only play online. I don't play story mode. My bad. I mean, as far as base game, yeah, no, it's a structured narrative.
It's a structured narrative. It's all about much like Red Dead. It was structured in such a way where it's just like a world that's supposed to feel alive and lived in, and there are all these little things for you to do. And it's not necessarily just going to the strip club and trying to get laid.
I mean, yeah, no.
I mean, there's all type of... you can play golf. I think you can play cards on a lot of them.
You can play cards,
they have
golf.
heist missions, which that's a little mass shootery, but again, it's still a structured mission.
I mean, and also a lot of heist missions encourage you to not shoot
civilians.
civilians.
Yeah, and it explicitly gives you the my point is I don't think a kid who didn't grow up on Grand Theft Auto 3 is necessarily gonna try to shoot everyone up more than once or twice.
Yeah, and I mean
Whereas like Grand Theft Auto, like San Andreas, is basically like a school shooter simulator.
Yeah. Okay.
My point is, like, I get the Grand Theft Auto thing.
I understand it, but I still think it's misguided. I think.
I don't know. Is it like so? The whole point is like we're kind of in this weird place with art where like we both want to constantly like whenever it fits your narrative, and I don't mean like use, but I mean like yours and like general, like
yeah.
I'll use the first person because I do the same shit. Like whenever it fits my narrative, I'm gonna say like, oh, art will make you think this, or it reinforces this idea. But whenever it doesn't fit my narrative, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna like play Grand Theft Auto and decide to like shoot up a school.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think that it necessarily doesn't reinforce your narrative. I just think, okay, so I think that, so let's say that I was a healthy, functioning adult who could actually run, and I decided to pick up NCAA 2000, fuck you, I don't know, and, throw a football and win lots of points.
Yeah.
I might be more inclined to call up my other football buddies, who I would also coincidentally have because reasons, and be like, hey, do you want to play a pickup game on Saturday? However, I think I already have to be kind of predisposed towards, wanting to play a game of football in real life in order to allow the game to influence me that way. Similarly, if, the kid...
Case in point, I never could invite my friends to play pickup basketball.
Yeah, because you're not predisposed to it. So
I'm a big old fatty.
So, I mean, if you have some kid who's, a psychopath or whatever, and he's like, what's really fun? Burning ants with magnifying glasses and skinning animals while they're alive. And he goes and plays Grand Theft Auto. I would wager that he might be like, what would be really interesting to find out? How do real people die? I could buy that. But the thing is the core predisposition is already there. The video game just agitates it.
Right, but ultimately the question is, would there be fewer mass shootings if Grand Theft Auto didn't exist? That's the question.
I honestly doubt it. Because there's just way too many other things.
Art either informs behavior or it doesn't.
I mean, informing behavior doesn't, like... Grand Theft Auto is one of like a dozen other things, and I don't think that Grand Theft Auto alone can be held responsible in any meaningful way.
Which is the argument for like censorship laws.
Well, I mean, like ESRB and responsible parenting. Because legally speaking, well, not legally, but logically speaking, 18-year-olds should be playing Grand Theft Auto, not 12-year-olds, high schoolers. Like Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris were what, 16?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose. I guess.
Like.
But most of them are like grown-ass adults. Like that's actually kind of one of the only exception is the Columbine kids. Like everyone else has been like a fully formed adult.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess the guy who came back to Parkland was like 21 or whatever.
Yeah, he was like a student. He had like graduated or dropped out like 3 years ago.
I think the troublesome bit is that Klebold and Harris kind of inspired a generation, if you will. Like, I mean, this point was made to me the other day. In the 70s and 80s, you didn't hear about mass shooters, you heard about serial killers, because that's all everyone ever talked about. Ted Bundy was on the news all the time. And then Klebold and Harris happened, and they were kind of the Mitch McConnells of the era. They innovated, bad things happened, and now everybody's replicating it.
I don't want to laugh too much because that's a really interesting point. The Mitch McConnell thing was really funny, but we don't really talk about. When's the last time there was a prolific serial killer?
I can't even think of the last time there was if serial killers have to be spread out over time, I can't think of a single one name.
Like, BTK was the 90s, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
BTK, actually, that's the one that I mentioned. BTK is the last one that I can think of. And he got caught because he was an arrogant prick. And then, right after BTK got caught, Dennis Rader got caught. Guess who was on the show?
Oh, you know what? Who was the Craigslist killer? Had to have been, like, 2000s, right?
Who?
The Craigslist killer. He was the guy who would like get escorts on Craigslist, and then he would murder them.
Jack the Ripper, but on the internet.
Kind of like he didn't dismember them; he just killed them.
I mean, okay,
I remember he was this really handsome blonde guy, and everyone was super confused when he wasn't like a weird, ugly like.
I mean, wasn't the
Kevin
same
Smith
case
looking ass
with
dude.
the guy that Zac Efron played that I don't care about? Ted Bundy? Was it Ted
Yeah, but
Bundy?
Ted Bundy wasn't actually handsome. Okay, people say Ted Bundy's handsome.
But he's not.
He's like most serial killers are actually kind of ugly. It's not even that the Craigslist guy was that ugly. It's just that like he wasn't like.
He wasn't horrifying. He wasn't Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely fair. So, I mean, going back to the base thing, is that mass shootings are the new method of infamy. Like, if you want your manifesto to be read, you go to fucking Walmart and you kill, like, a dozen people.
Is it like the same compulsion then, like as serial killing?
I mean, I'm not a psychologist, I couldn't say.
Because like there were also, I think the difference is like there have been like prolific serial killers who weren't like necessarily like media attention whores.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that there's some that have the compulsion, and there's some that want notoriety, like any other major killer.
Right, like obviously like BTK, like he was like
He wanted credit.
yeah, but like for example like the Craigslist killer, like he wasn't like posting manifest, like he just killed them and then
He moved on. Yeah.
yeah.
Like I think there's so if oh
Like
god,
the reason
psychology.
he got famous was because like he basically like caused prostitution crackdown on Craigslist.
So, if I had to guess, there's probably three types. There's compulsion, ideology, and manifesto.
What's the difference between ideology and manifesto?
Ideology does it because they believe that they're God's vigilante and they don't necessarily care about credit, but they believe that it has to be done. Compulsion is
Yeah, like killing feels good.
yeah, and then manifesto. I mean, manifesto is actually technically two, where it's they want credit and they know notoriety, or they want their message to get out there. So that's four, I guess. My bad.
But I guess like the different like every single mass shooter is basically a manifesto guy in some form. Like that's a big thing. They all have, I guess, other than like the Vegas guy.
Yeah, the Vegas guy has no discernible motive. I mean, okay, so let's see. The most deadly one, so Orlando, yeah, that was definitely political. El Paso was political. Was Dayton political?
Dayton was political, not in the.
Like, was it manifesto political, or was it political because he happened to follow a bunch of lefties on Twitter?
Well, and he also like he posted something online
Oh,
about the like.
yeah.
He didn't do it in like the structured sort of like basically like the New Zealand guy. It was kind of like
Oh, the New Zealand guy. There's another political one.
like the New Zealand guy has become sort of like the benchmark of the manifesto style.
Yeah. There was the one guy, VTech in 07.
Yeah, he had a manifesto.
Yeah, he had the incels manifesto. That was-
Same thing with like the Elliot, Sean Elliott, Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott's an actor.
No, there was something Elliott. He was one of the first big incel. The guy who shut up the yoga studio.
I don't remember that one.
Okay, anyway, that was another like incel manifesto one. Even the kids in Columbine, they had like it wasn't like a structured like political manifesto.
They had a
hadn't
manifesto?
Yeah, they had a manifesto.
Huh.
It was just really like unstructured. Like there was no like rhyme or reason to it in the way that like
That's
like
actually
if you
really
read,
weird. I've
I think
never
the
heard of
difference between like how the New Zealand shooter changed the game was like his manifesto was like internally consistent, like kind of disturbing weird way. Like
the yoga one was Elliot Roger.
there, Ellie Roger. So the New Zealand shooting was like if you read, I've read the whole thing. I probably read like every single manifesto of the shooter.
And
And some of them are really long and they're not very grammatically correct.
I think
A lot of not literal Nazis, but not grammar Nazis. Gotta get that.
no, that's me.
A lot of grammar errors, and but what struck me about the New Zealand one is like it's a coherent ideology with like even distinctions. Like one of the big thing about his ideology. It was very much more like a young, like, Pepe ideology.
Yeah, it was-
In the sense that, like, whereas your old Republicans are still very much, like, economic Republicans at heart.
yeah, this was more QAnon shit.
Like, Trump is kind of the perfect hybrid candidate.
He's
because
so goddamn.
being a billionaire and a sociopath, like, he's all about, like, getting the tax cut rich as much as possible. But he also, like, wants to, like, throw all minorities in prisons.
Okay.
But there's kind of your Paul Ryan types who, like, for the most part, they
Have you
care about
tried
the money
not
and the
being
tax
poor?
breaks, and you know the racism just kind of comes with it.
Yeah, because, a disproportionate
And
number
then
of poor people are.
what has happened is like the moderate, or I should say not the moderate, the modern conservative is the opposite. They care about the racism. And a lot of them actually kind of disagree with the economics. That's where you get like Yang Gang idiots. It's like those are the ones who like want you to be.
They want to eat their chicken tendies in their mom's basement forever, but they don't.
They want universal basic income, but they still want to send Mexicans to the gulags.
Yeah, which is really funny because I'm reasonably confident that that's not part of Yang's platform.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. It's weird that they latched onto him. I think they just were like,
Tendies. That's all.
Tendies.
They just saw tendies and they were like, yes, please.
yeah. And so it's very coherent in the sense, like, even it talks about like the exploitation, the New Zealand manifesto. It talks about the sort of the exploitive labor practices, but it's framed within the context of like these rich guys are letting all the minorities take over and breed us out of existence so they can make more profit.
So the great replacement philosophy. All right.
It's sort of, yeah, it's basically like, it's like the hybrid of like almost like socialist philosophy with like,
Great replacement.
Yeah.
Alarmism.
but yeah,
That's a
how did I get on
really
this?
weird
Video games. So yeah, it's just, video games have come out in pretty strong force. And then saw a couple of like the real basic ass, like, the new version of the Thoughts and Prayers is the, guns aren't the problem. The real problem is we aren't teaching kids values as parents. So I guess like Americans are like uniquely fucking awful at parenting, which I suppose if you have a bunch of like dimwits who think that, maybe that's true. But they're just like, you just sit down your kid, teach them wrong from right.
I mean,
Take a girl to prom, only go to first base.
it's
Got to bring Bibles back in the schools.
I don't.
I fucking popped off, man. I popped off when a couple people did that shit. I was like, are you really this dumb?
Are you really wasting my
Do
oxygen
you think
right
kids
now?
who are stuck in poverty in fucking Brazil are like sitting down and having real serious talks with their kids about like treating their neighbor right? No, they're not, because they're afraid they're going to get gunned down by a drug cartel, and they're working 20 hours a week or 20 hours a day. 20 hours a week would be a stand-up comedian.
Call back.
They're working like 20 hours a day, making like $2 an hour. Or they don't have time to sit down and parent their kids. And it's not their fault. It's America's fault because they've exploited every third world nation on earth for their oil and basically stripped all these nations for parts. Like a dying newspaper.
Like Honduras.
And guess what? Brazil didn't have mass fucking shootings.
No, instead they did cartel violence, which is obviously different, but yeah.
The thing about cartel violence is it's mostly like if you lay low, unless the cartel wants to take over your city.
Well, I mean, even then, like, cartel violence, from what I've read, isn't random. It isn't, it's about taking out opponents, enemies, and revenge. Or, like,
It's also not a gun
snitches.
control issue.
No, it's a cartel issue. It's an
It's an
organized
economic
crime
issue, ultimately. It's
That too. It's an economic issue. It's the fact that there's a market currently for illicit whatever they're selling.
So yeah, that's the right. And then fair and balanced, I gotta move on to the left. I still haven't gotten. Coming up next, the hottest take about Jeffrey Epstein. But first,
I'm gonna
the
kill
left.
you.
So, the thing I see from the left, it's not. I'm not like. I'll just say it, and then I'll get your guys' thoughts. It's like, seeing a lot of pushback against the mass shooters are crazy / psycho / mental health. A lot of people are like, they weren't mentally unstable. They were perfectly mentally healthy. Don't stigmatize people with mental health conditions, which like is dumb because mental health is by nature defined by normative behavior. That is how we define mental health.
Okay. Yeah.
Depression is basically an overwhelming sadness that hinders your ability to function in society. Okay, bipolar is an extremity of emotions that hinders your ability to function in society. Like,
Yeah.
you describe every mental health condition, it's like the problem is like we define mental health by norms, which so by definition, if you shoot up a school, you can't be mentally well.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous because the point they're trying to make is like, actually, I don't even get the point I guess like, don't stigmatize people with mental health, but I think like,
I mean, like we still don't want schizophrenics to own firearms.
yeah, like, I don't know, like if you have a severe mental health condition, you probably shouldn't own it. Here, hot take. It's actually not that hot of a take. It's a warm take. Owning a gun is not like a fundamental right. It's not. You can live a happy, fulfilling life without owning a gun. It's not an inalienable right. The Second Amendment of the Constitution is bullshit. And you can say all this stuff about like, oh, it's it's fine. The word well regulated. It shouldn't be in there. What purpose does it serve? Because like the ability to own a firearm does not positively impact your life in any way. It's a hobby. Whether you're hunting deer or shooting beer cans or like making shitty like YouTube videos, the shitty Russian accent, talking about fat American women.
Is he still relevant? I don't think he is.
I feel like the genre of gun guys on YouTube is definitely
Not as big as it used to be.
let me put it this way, I don't really want to go to gun YouTubing.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody does. Well, actually, that's not true.
Because the thing is, like, YouTube's kind of political now, which, like,
Imagine my surprise.
basically, unless you're like an skit entertainment or like a vlog, like you're one of the vloggers who made it in the 2000s, like a Jenna Marbles type. Like you're probably doing politics of some kind.
At least in some
Like
way,
even
shape,
like
or
film
form.
YouTube, right? Like you know every film YouTuber's political lean. You can figure it out like pretty much immediately. Which ones like The Last Jedi and which ones didn't? There, problem solved.
That's actually a really interesting litmus test.
Video game YouTubers. Which ones use the N-word? Which ones don't?
Oof.
Just kidding, they all use the N-word.
That's not true. At least I don't think it is. I haven't been on gaming YouTube, and I don't know if the guy still does stuff. But it's irrelevant. Moot point. I get your point.
And so, like, I guess the point is, like, they're trying to, like, stick up for their mentally, you know,
Well, like, don't
their
make fun
therapy
of schizophrenic
brethren.
people.
But,
But,
like,
that's not what we're doing. We're talking about how this guy was insane and murdered.
guess
12
what?
people.
If you shoot, like, I think people, like, even, like, fucking MAGA chuds are generally capable of distinguishing. Like, I think even, like, the most derpy-ass, dumb MAGA chud is typically capable of distinguishing between, like, someone who has relatively well-managed bipolar disorder and
somebody who's,
someone
getting...
who thinks that, like, the ghosts in their head have told them to assassinate the Gambino family. So they're Donald Trump's chosen one.
Oh my god, Frank Cali was down by QAnon.
Like, are we gonna get so far into the PC culture where like we're not allowed to use the word crazy because it stigmatizes? It's like we've kind of gotten that way with like ableism, where like you can't use the word cripple; it's a slur. Like, yeah, describing a human being as a cripple is not nice, and you shouldn't do that. But you can use like, if I say that like, Tyrod Taylor throwing an interception in the fourth quarter crippled the Buffalo Bills' chances of winning the football game. That's not an ableist slur. That's just a verb.
Yeah, like it's not been hijacked.
You can say, and you can't say disabled, like, and then you use disabled. It's like the same thing.
Yeah, you can say disabled before the word.
It's like it disabled their chances. I don't know. I guess like hindered. I've even heard this about like I do feel like with some of the words, because it's a lazy way of being woke, is just saying like you can't use these words anymore.
It's called an overcorrection.
Like, it started with the N-word, basically, where like it's just like white people can't use the N-word, which they shouldn't. They shouldn't use the N-word. White people should not. Here's a hot take: white people should never use the N-word. But like, then it got to the point where like, even the N-word thing, it got to the point where people are like going on like these like young athletes' social media, picking out like them quoting rap lyrics when they were 14 and be like, "Oh, caught him doing these racist tweets." Like, he's 14. It's not racist to quote rap. It's not racist to quote rap lyrics on Twitter.
No, it's not.
The point that like Chad Henne is trying to make on Twitter. Real name, by the way, Chad Henne, backup quarterback of the Jaguars. The point that like Chad Henne was trying to make on Twitter is like, when he was 14, was like, "I'm skinny, but I'm real tough and strong." When he said skinny N-word, big balls, he wasn't like making fun of other races. He was an idiot 14-year-old who thought like Drake was cool, which he isn't. Drake is bad. You should already know he was an idiot because he was quoting Drake lyrics. I should have told you right there. He's like quoting Drake lyrics. So yeah, okay, he's an idiot. You know who else is an idiot? Everyone is. Like, it's okay. Like, it doesn't. Like, we know it's like. You can say like maybe you shouldn't quote rap lyrics the N-word in like public forums, and that's fine. Like, maybe we shouldn't do that. But if you do, when you're a 14-year-old doofus, that doesn't make you a racist.
It also doesn't mean that it should have to follow you around for the rest of your life either. Like,
because it's just a lazy way of being woke. Instead of like, maybe
having nuance.
Speaking to a black person and learning about what it's like, basically having to shit your pants every time you see a cop. And like knowing that like if you have a black sounding name, it's really hard to get a job.
It takes on average three weeks longer for a resume to get callback if it has a black sounding name.
You know what it's like when you grow up in poverty and it's harder for you to get into the right college? And then you get to the right college and your resume is just as good as the other guy, and then it's even harder to get a job, but just because your name is Kentavious instead of John. Like, guess what? That sucks. Maybe talk about that a little more instead of just being like, "Oh, Chad Henne is a racist because he quoted Drake lyrics."
It's A, an overcorrection, and B, lazy.
That's exactly what happens with like this sort of the new reaction where it's just like, "Oh, we can't call shooters mentally ill because it stigmatizes mental illness." Like, no,
it doesn't. It doesn't, and B, it doesn't.
I get that like people on the right talking about how we have a mental health problem is concern trolling, and they're not actually going to fix our mental health problem. But that doesn't mean that like that if you shoot up a school that like by the definition of what a mental health problem is, you cannot shoot up a school and be mentally sane.
Well, yeah, no, that's
because what they're arguing, and now we're going to get into. I can't believe it. I thought this would be like 5 minutes. So essentially, what they're getting at is sort of essentially what the left is saying, and ultimately, it's one of those things where like people on the far left are actually a lot more like people on the far right than
Yay, horseshoe.
like they're not equivalent, but they have a lot of similarities. Or like they're saying like, oh no, every single decision the mass shooter made was actually logical. Because they're basically saying that like the mass shooter's logic was correct. That's what they're saying.
That's what they're insinuating, yeah. That's what they're accidentally conceding.
Because the reality is when you see like people on leftist Twitter like guillotine memes, like they're essentially saying that like they're doing what the right does with like racist Pepe memes, where they're like, oh no, it was just a joke, bro. But they do want to like assassinate every rich person on earth.
Well, yeah. That's
like they want to unironically like murder everyone who has a net worth of over $10 million.
Yeah, guillotine memes are.
Which, to be clear, like there are, and this is where like, yeah, you don't want to get into false equivalence because the difference, even if you take the ideology to that extreme, is the difference is like you can choose to stop being rich, but you can't choose to stop being black. And therefore, like, one is clearly much more morally repugnant than the other. Because, like, if you threaten everyone with a guillotine, like, they can just choose to make less than $10 million a year.
I mean, that's the whole premise behind horseshoe theory. There's still the space between the two bars at the end.
Well, that's not the premise of horseshoe theory.
Well, I mean,
that's
like, it's the point.
Version.
It's the point of the horseshoe theory, though, is, like, even if they have, like, similar methods and, like... Well,
no, because the idiots who usually post the horseshoe meme think they are the same.
Both sides are the same. But the thing is that's misrepresenting horseshoe theory because when people say both sides are the same, that's not horseshoe theory, that's circle theory. It doesn't work that way.
But, yeah. So that's Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. I have the hottest take.
Oh yeah, you mean the
We're coming hot.
Oh god.
Jeffrey Epstein
Putting my sunglasses on.
killed himself.
Okay.
Like, for real.
So he
wasn't whacked.
Okay.
And I've thought about this. I need the sunglasses for this. It's getting too hot. This is great for all audio medium. Where did you get these? I need to get some.
Walmart.
Yeah.
From the eyeglasses section. Like
God
where
bless
they sell,
here. Where are these?
Where they sell like lens crafters or whatever it is.
That's a great little bit for...
LensCrafters sponsor me because, oh my god, I can't see with Mason's glasses. Oh my god.
For those of you who don't know, I'm blind as a bat. So, luckily I don't need to be able to see for a visual medium either. So...
Stevie Wonder over here.
Exactly. So I thought about it for a while, and I was like, and my first thought, just like everyone else, I woke up, and I was like, my dad was like, hey, did you hear that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? And I was like, yeah, I bet no one was more surprised than he was. Like, every other person on Twitter told that joke. That was my first reaction. It's just natural, like, you know. And I get why it's like the natural, like, oh yeah, obviously he was whacked because every single billionaire, he has like photos of diddling kids.
Yeah.
But then when I thought about it, I realized it doesn't actually make that much sense for anyone to want to assassinate him. Now let me explain why.
I'll allow it.
He's been in jail long enough that he's pretty much given up most of the goods at this point.
Has he? Here, give me my sunglasses back. They look ridiculous.
He's given up most of the goods at this point.
I hadn't heard that.
Maybe not all of them, but like he has like a black book and like they have a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, they also have his. They got his blackmail safe, didn't they?
I think so. Like at least a chunk of it.
Okay.
My point is, a lot of dominoes are. I'm not going to say they're going to fall because, like, ultimately, like...
Nobody gets held accountable anyway.
Yeah. Which is actually my other point is, like, again, there's no evidence whatsoever. There's no evidence whatsoever that, like, if you're a rich guy, you're actually going to go to jail. So, like, why would you risk it by, like, whacking a guy?
I think Jeffrey Epstein's the only guy who's gone it. Who's the rapper? I can't think of the rapper.
The rapper?
Yeah.
R. Kelly?
Yeah.
Yeah, R. Kelly is like a social minority, and B, way less rich than the people who are on Epstein Island.
Him and Epstein are basically the only two people that I could think of that were.
And R. Kelly went to jail for like a year.
He's still in jail.
Is he?
Yeah, he's being held on no bond.
Okay. He got away with it forever, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, just like Epstein did. And then there was like this really weird cold snap for everyone.
Yeah. So, let's just go down the list. So, this is one of those really funny things where, like, everyone on the right is like, oh, Clintons must have whacked him. And everyone on the left is like, oh, Trump must have whacked him. So, Jeffrey Epstein, we're back, baby. We're in the car now. So my point is, with Jeffrey Epstein, is like, so people on the right are like, oh, the Clintons whacked him. People on the left are like, oh, Trump whacked him. But here's the thing. We know what they did. Like right now.
We already know that they're associated. They did bad shit.
It's not even that. Like, especially with like Trump, right? There's no way Trump whacked him. None. This is what I will guarantee this. I can't say with like 100. I'm like 99% certain that he probably wasn't whacked. But I can say with 100% certainty, there's no way that Clinton or Trump whacked him. Because we know.
Like, so one of the major things, so I mean, I guess there's two major points. A, whacking somebody draws a lot of attention to what they have to say and brings a lot of profile to any accused or associates. So that draws way more light on Trump and Clinton. B, Trump and Clinton both can't competently keep a secret between them. Clinton couldn't keep a fucking blowjob a secret during his administration. And Trump, I mean, I don't think he could keep his fucking trap shut. He'd be like, oh yeah, Jeffrey Epstein better watch his back.
Like, exactly. Like, what's Trump gonna do? Put in the CIA? The CIA's legacy is failure.
The CIA is also at odds with Trump. Like, his intelligence agencies regularly disagree with him, and he regularly disagrees with them. Like, there's no useful or meaningful way for Donald Trump to get a hitman inside a prison to kill Jeffrey Epstein. However, that being said, I must admit that I think that it's feasible that there was corruption on some level, either at the warden level or at the little guy level or whatever, to take Jeffrey Epstein off of suicide watch and allow him to kill himself.
Okay, so this is where we get into the research I've done.
Okay.
First of all, plenty of people kill themselves on suicide watch, which, to be clear, I understand he wasn't even on suicide watch.
Okay.
But it's easier to do than you would think.
Okay.
And granted, he's in maximum security, so the degree of difficulty is a little bit harder.
Okay. With a slight tangent to that, fun fact that I found out from this is a credible source. Jeffrey Epstein, at the time of death, was supposed to be checked on by officers every half hour, and then when he was found dead, he had not been checked on for several hours. I don't know the exact number, but quote, several hours.
See, to me, that actually makes it more likely that he wasn't whacked, like he was, because the thing is, like, you would dot your I's and cross your T's if you're going to pretend, because it didn't take several hours to kill a guy.
Well, the thing is like, okay, no, I'm not saying whack.
So if you're going to check him, every half hour, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take half an hour to die of strangulation.
No, it doesn't. What I'm saying is, like, it's easier to feign gross incompetence and allow him to kill himself than it is to actually whack the guy.
Yeah, like, I'm saying, like, there's not even, like, unusual gross incompetence. Because the point is, like, most prisons on Earth, or I should say not on Earth, but in the U.S., most prisons in the U.S., in fact, all prisons in the U.S. are, like, grossly incompetent. Because they're for-profit fucking businesses that just try to wring in every last dollar by saving as much money as possible on every tiny little expense. It's why they all get fed, like rotten tofu and, like, toenails. It's why they're all understaffed and they have, like, 5 guards to handle, like, 10,000 prisoners. Because they're trying to squeeze every last drop of profit out of those fucking places.
Because free slave labor, bruh.
And granted, this is like a federal like maximum security, so it's like slightly better, but still, like ultimately, like the federal government in many ways takes the same approach. So my point with Jeffrey Epstein is, like, if someone whacked him, it would have to be like someone we don't know is involved, because like we have like testimony of witnesses saying of like witnesses describing in detail how Trump molested a 14-year-old girl. Like we have
witnesses?
detailed witnesses who are alive.
Like, no, I mean, like, currently actively testifying.
Like, not testifying in court, but like have been interviewed and their testimony has leaked.
Oh, shit.
And I posted one of these on the Facebook. So if you were,
I do not.
and I'll find
do
it
not
later and
Facebook.
repost it on Twitter.
Twitter's
So
not real life.
no, but my point is,
Yeah,
like,
I know.
everyone follow me at Real Mason Roth, and I'll post it for the world to see.
So this leaked testimony is from a recent interview?
Yeah, it's like the last couple of it's from like the most recent Epstein case.
Okay.
I don't know exactly when, like, I don't know the backstory behind it, but it's like legit. It's not like some like QAnon, like some guy found it and like posted it on like, you know, a quarantined Reddit subreddit or something.
Uh-huh.
So it's like real.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get over it. We're cruising for
So my point is, like, that's as good as it's gonna get. Unless there's like literally like 1080p video of him just like fucking railing her. And even then, like, you think that's gonna stop him? Like, we know. What's the video, how's video gonna change anything?
I mean, video doesn't change cop murder cases.
Exactly. We've seen body cams of someone will come up like, oh, she must have been 25.
Huh.
No, we have her ID. There's like, oh, it must have just been someone who looks like her. Like, people will come up with something. They always will.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to manufacture reasonable doubt, which is depressing and frustrating.
They'll come up with something. Whether it's like, maybe, and if they get desperate enough, they'll just see like, well, deepfakes are a thing now.
Yeah, so
We'll have our first, like, because like,
the deep fakes defense.
yeah, they'll just be like, well, video, it's obviously fake. Like, they put someone else's face on Trump.
Or Trump's face on someone else.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I get you.
So, ultimately, like, it's not going to matter. So, like, why would he kill Epstein? Nothing. Epstein would come out with 100 videos, and it would do nothing.
Nope.
And same thing with Clinton. Now, Clinton would, like, go to trial and then get pardoned by, like, the next Democratic president. But, like, ultimately, like, nothing's gonna happen to him. So, like, why would you bother? Like, why would you bother? If someone did kill him, and to be clear, no one killed him. To be absolutely clear, no one killed Epstein, but Epstein. Epstein killed Epstein. If someone was gonna whack him, it'd have to be like someone we don't know is involved. It'd have to be either like some Saudi prince, but even then, like, again, like a Saudi prince, why are you gonna risk an international incident? They're not gonna expedite you.
Yeah, they're not.
Trump's not gonna expedite some as like Israeli diplomat.
Yeah, Mohammed bin Salman or whatever isn't going to get extradited to the United States. A, because, well, it's just not going to fucking happen. And B, because, like, I'm fairly sure that underage cultural practice is still a thing in Saudi Arabia, isn't it?
It would have to be like someone who's like low enough influence they could go to jail. Have to be like Alex Rodriguez.
A-Rod?
Well, it's the first person I thought of because he threatened to, like, he tried to whack a guy for outing him on steroids.
Really?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
But, like, even he didn't go to jail. They never proved it. So, like, even, like, A-Rod might be too influential. You'd have to be, like, Chris Tucker.
Chris... What?
But the problem is, so Chris Tucker was on he was on, like, one, so, the other thing is, like, they've leaked the flight logs, so, like, that's where you would get your list of, like, potential guys.
Uh-huh.
But, like, Chris Tucker was, like, on one flight log. So, like, you can't necessarily say... Like, I even feel a little bad bringing up his name, but, like, he was on one of the flight logs. Like, you gotta explain that. But at the same time, like, if he comes out, it's like, yeah, we were doing a charity thing. Like, it could be true. He could have done a charity thing with, like, Trump, Clinton, and Epstein. It was those 4 on the flight log. Like, they very well could have done a charity thing, and then Chris Tucker's like, why do you guys look so disappointed? We had a great time. We raised a lot of money for, like, kids with ass cancer. And then they're like, oh, didn't get to rape any children.
And it'd be like, I don't even know that somebody, like, I know that Chris Tucker's relatively famous and has money, I'm
Right,
sure.
so once you get to, like,
But,
low
like,
enough on the totem pole
Does
where
he
you...
have that kind of clout to pull a hitman?
Exactly. Like, you have to find the celebrity who's right in the middle of, like, has enough clout to maybe assassinate Epstein, but not enough clout to, like, not go to jail. So it'd have to be, like, Michael Mann, because, like, Michael Mann hung out, like, you'd have to come up with such a convoluted conspiracy. You'd have to be like, well, Michael Mann knew all these criminals when he did his movies, because he was obsessed with having real criminals on the set. So he probably talked to them and had them whack him, because he's not rich and powerful enough to avoid jail. Like, that would be who it would be. It'd have to be, like, Michael Mann whacked Epstein. And he would know how to do it because he was so obsessed with, like, realism in his movies. There, I solved it. Michael Mann killed
Jeffrey.
Other than the fact that, like, we have no evidence whatsoever that Michael Mann's a pedophile, we solved it. But there you go. It'd have to be like that. That's it. So when you narrow down the list, you realize, like, oh, he probably didn't get whacked. And then there's one more angle to this. One more angle that I think definitively proves that he wasn't whacked on
Okay.
purpose. Okay,
Which is
part of what made Epstein basically part of it is just the fact he was rich. I mean, that obviously that's the biggest part. But the other part is, like, why it took them so long to arrest him is because he had he had all these non-disclosure agreements with, like, every single employee. And so any employee who wanted to testify him couldn't because they had a non-disclosure agreements. Like, the butlers even all had non-disclosure agreements. Well, guess what happens if Jeffrey Epstein is dead?
NDAs aren't binding anymore.
They're not binding. So all of a sudden you have, like, hundreds of more potential testimony.
Yeah, like all of his staff, all of his...
You can argue
Yeah.
that it actually makes more likely for shit to hit the fan if he's dead. Now, you can argue the other way as well, but my point is, both him being alive and being dead complicates things. And the thing is, if he got whacked, it's like, if he got whacked, like, why didn't he get whacked earlier? Because he had already gone to jail once and then gotten an immunity deal. Presumably because he promised to rat people out. Like, they weren't going to whack him then? Or shit, why wouldn't they promise to whack him? Why would they whack him after he got out of jail the first time?
Yeah, like, honestly, like...
That's the most evident. That's the most proof that we have.
Like, if Donald Trump wanted Jeffrey Epstein dead, Donald Trump should have had him dead in, let's say, June of 2015.
Yeah, he cut a plea deal. I think it was either 2 or 3 years ago. They arrested him. They tried him. He cut a plea deal, and it was like the greatest plea deal ever. Like, it was like immunity from future crimes, which, like, prosecutors aren't even supposed to be allowed to do.
Yeah, like, Acosta's fucking insane, dude.
So if you're like, you know, Michael, Celebrity X, I don't want to accuse anyone of being a pedophile. If you're Celebrity X and you want to assassinate Jeffrey Epstein, and you just heard on the news that he cut a plea deal that promises him immunity from current and future crimes. They literally just wrote him an agreement saying that, like, you are immune from crimes. Wouldn't you whack him then?
I mean...
When he's out of jail? When he's out of jail, you could shoot him with a gun. You could shoot... No one's going to be surprised. We all knew he was a pedophile guy since, like, 2004. It's like, oh, someone must have heard on the news Jeffrey could have gotten some psycho to do it. Hell, you could have gone on to 4chan and just tricked one of them into doing it.
I mean, QAnon's already.
They already assassinated a mob guy. You think they couldn't get to Jeffrey Epstein? He was on an island where there's just child prostitutes. That was the whole island. Just put an accidental boating accident. There's not going to be any witnesses except for the child prostitutes. What, you think they're going to rat you out? Oh, Jeffrey tricked me into being a child prostitute, but I'm really sad he's dead.
Yo, where are you parked?
The garage right there. I'm in the garage.
Okay, in that garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why he asked you if you knew where his garage was.
Sorry, I got all spun around. So.
We knew! We knew! They knew too! Why didn't they whack him then?
Because life isn't House of Cards. Life is Veep.
Yeah, exactly!
I need to watch Veep, actually.
Sorry! Like, what? Is Jeffrey Epstein... And people are like... the other, like, worst Jeffrey Epstein... I can't believe I'm getting this upset, because I was like, I opened up... I had so much compassion. I was like, yes, I understand why you thought Jeffrey Epstein was whacked. But... And now I'm just going off the rails. Third rail, baby. That's the name of the podcast. Third rail, baby. I'm sure there's a parking spot we can find here. Jeffrey Epstein... Like... I guess, like, what? Is it like a movie where, like, if I die, this gets released onto all the internet servers? But if that's true, that's also true when he's in prison.
If I don't send this email every 24 hours, all this information drops.
Guess what? How's he going to send the email in prison?
Well, it's an automated email that he has to delay.
I guess. Listen, I don't know. It doesn't work. It doesn't add up. And people are like, oh, well, he was such an egomaniac because, like, so, like, he famously, like, wanted to, like, spread all of his DNA to, like, the world because he was a fucking creep. And people are like, oh, an egomaniac like that, they love themselves too much. They never kill themselves. But the thing is, like, egomania like that, like, most of the time it's, like, manic. Like, it goes through, like, highs and lows.
Well, that and, like...
Have you ever heard of Kanye West?
That and egomaniacs, when their ego is shattered for whatever reason, say going to prison for being a pedophile and now everyone hates you, that tends to do pretty bad things to their psyche.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not only infeasible, it's not only, like, not infeasible that, like, someone who was a lunatic, egomaniac like that would kill themselves. They probably did. Makes slightly more sense. It, like, fits the psychological profile. So that's it. That's Jeffrey Epstein. Didn't whack himself.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. Any closing? And the crazy thing about the Jeffrey... Okay, now I got one last thing. The other thing about the Jeffrey Epstein thing is... So, it's like the normies... Normal people are like... It was like the classic, like, pandering normie move. Where, like, everyone on is like, well, I'm not much of a conspiracy person. But this one's for real. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, woo, woo, woo. I saw literally, like, I follow, like, mostly, like, normal-ass people on Twitter. I follow, like, reporters and shit. Like, normies.
Fucking normies.
Fucking normies. And they're like, even they are like, do, I want to believe. Do. It's like, have none of you just applied critical... See, the problem is, like, it's a sort of conspiracy theory, like, the person doesn't understand conspiracy theories believed. You know what's a better conspiracy theory? Michael Jordan got banned from the NBA from gambling. You know why? Only 3 people had to know. Michael Jordan had to agree to it. That admittedly is the toughest one. Stern had to agree to it. That's really about it. 2 to 5 people had to know. So, like, in the prison, there's a gazillion cameras.
Guards, warden.
Yeah. So, like, multiple guards, a warden, whoever's in charge of the cameras, they would have all be met on it. I think one of them's not going to rat. They're making, like, $12 an hour.
Yeah, they don't fucking care unless you paid them shitload of hush money and threaten their
You're gonna
families.
shitload of hush money, and then what? They have the money. You're gonna just pay them in installments for the rest of their life?
Well, I mean, and then you have to threaten their families.
Yeah, I guess like carrot and stick them, like in the fucking movies.
Yeah, that's the
Weird.
only
It's
way.
almost as if America has like forgotten how reality works, because movies are not real life, and neither is Twitter. But yeah, it's just the pandering thing. It's like one person was like, "Oh, you know who's the most surprised? Jeffrey Epstein dying. Jeffrey Epstein," and then it's the pandering thing where just everyone, all of culture has become like people who blog and people who YouTube and people who tweet. It's all about pandering, pandering, and they just want to get the most popular milk toast ass take. But guess what? You know who's not delivering you milk toast takes? Not me. You know, they'll just be like the Epstein thing. I'm not even talking about the conspiracy stuff anymore. The Epstein thing has become just the absolute fucking worst when it comes to just social media pandering. I call it the LeBron move. So LeBron James kind of famously does a lot of social media posts where it's just like obvious popular ass shit. So Chris Rock has a famous skit where he's like, where he's like, how do you get credit? He's like, I raise the difference between black people and N-words. And he'll explain where he's like, I take care of my kids. He's like, you're supposed to take care of your kids. You don't get no fucking credit for that. But that's become like all of social media. It's like I swear, every other tweet I saw after the initial like, oh, yeah, obviously Epstein was whacked, was like, I don't care which political party you're from. If you are on Epstein's sex island, I think you should go to jail. It's the most virtue signaling ass bullshit. It's like, yeah, of course. Congratulations. You really had to announce to the world that like you think pedophiles should go to jail?
Like, it's like,
are you that desperate for fucking attention?
you may as well say, I'm registering for the people for not kicking puppies party.
Yeah, like what purpose did that tweet serve? What purpose to tweeting, I think if you're on a I don't care what political party you're on. Hashtag pedophiles for prison.
Hashtag, you think?
Like, yeah, like why? How is that interesting? How is that like, oh, congratulations. You don't believe in, like, it's just the most meekest bullshit. Just, again, there's just like no intelligence, didn't make me think anything new. Didn't make me, learn more about you as a person unless I guess if I thought you were a sociopath.
It's like, oh, this guy might be a pedophile. Nope, he's not a pedophile. Or at least he's pretending
It's like
to not
the
be
even
one.
more ridiculous version of like earlier when I was making fun of like, I think we've lost values. Back in my day, like the nostalgia thing is really, and I think this is why I hate nostalgia so much ultimately. So I famously, anyone who knows me knows that I loathe most things that are nostalgic.
Especially for the 80s.
Pandering. Well, and I hate the 80s too, but that's an entire, we do not have enough time for my age rant. We'll have to save that for next week. So,
Oh, God. What have I done?
so the thing I hate about nostalgia is it's the pandering. It's just the, remember this? Remember? It's like that, but even more empty and shallow. Because whereas nostalgia is at least like a real emotion with endorphins that causes like joy and sexual arousal sometimes. I hope that Bill Clinton, I'm a leftist, but I hope Bill Clinton goes to jail if he really was on the island, because they'll always they won't even go so far as to name names.
Uh-huh.
Like, they're not even going to be like, because again, if you name names, then it doesn't work as a pander, because then you'll get people, like, if you're like, I hope Bill Clinton goes to jail, then guess what? Wine moms are going to hate you, and you can't do that, because then it's not popular, it's not the great retweetable.
And I mean, like,
Why don't you it's the thoughts and prayers, but without, like, even dumber.
it's an empty gesture full of sound and fury.
And that's how you get all this
signifying
centrism
nothing.
bullshit, is because we just reward people for saying the obvious shit you're supposed to do. And that is my final Epstein thought. Is that Epstein has really brought out social media pandering on a level that we haven't seen in some time. Do we have any final thoughts? That was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing.
Do we have any final thoughts back there?
No.
Somehow Celeste fell half. So for those of you, Celeste somehow fell halfway asleep.
I did not. I just laid down because it was uncomfortable leaning against boxes.
Oh, I thought you fell asleep when I was screaming about. I was like, that would be damn impressive.
Cruise ship, but not that much.
I'm gonna come up with something just thoughtful to end. Yeah, Jeffrey.
If you want something thoughtful,
Who can relate? Woo! It's the Logic song about not committing suicide,
what the fuck, dude?
which is funny because Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide.
Yes, thank you. I didn't.
I
know
might
that.
cut that part, but yeah, those are my thoughts. We'll
Yeah.
see how well the audio goes, and
Well, we know for sure that this
Good night,
bit's gonna
Twitter.
be really